Look, I'm just going to be honest with you up front. I may not have caught every single detail of this game, as I was at the Seahawks Thursday Night Football game while this game was happening. Now, that being said, I did try to catch as much of the game as I could. I was streaming it on my phone while watching the Seahawks game live, which was not particularly easy to do given the spotty at best internet at Lumen Field. But I wanted to do my absolute best to make sure that I missed as little as possible from each of the two games. That having been said, I may have been better off if I had missed everything from both of them. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken lose 3-2 in Carolina to the Hurricanes. Although, that final score makes this game seem a lot closer than it really was. Now yes, ultimately the deciding goal in this game ends up being the penalty shot that's awarded to the Canes on a rather soft call, but again, this is not a game that the Kraken deserve to be this close in the first place. I certainly don't always think this is the case, but I actually think the shots on goal tell a much better picture of how this game actually went, where the Kraken gave up a sixth or tied for sixth highest in franchise history, 39 shots on goal. Meanwhile, they got a tied for franchise worst with 3 games last season, 17 shots of their own. Again, that's 39 shots allowed to 17 that they got. I mean, I'd complain about nobody playing defense, but nobody was playing offense either. And I'd complain about nobody playing offense, but nobody was playing defense. In fact, really the one thing that anybody bothered to play in this game was goaltender, as Grubauer had himself a heck of a game, which is the only thing that prevented this from being a 6 or 7-2 blowout, like the game in Tampa Bay. Although again, with that game, in case you forgot, that happened because of goaltending, and now this game they actually get great goaltending, and they still can't win. So, I mean, it was still a great start to the season, but things seem like they might actually be coming off the rails a bit. Okay, maybe we're getting a little bit too ahead of ourselves going that far with it. This was a very tough East Coast road trip with the Capitals, the Panthers, the Lightning, and Canes, all 4 of which were supposed to be very good teams coming into the season, and, well, at least 2 of them are actually holding up to that to this point. And yes, the Kraken have now lost 5 of their last 6 games in regulation, but again, that's coming off of a 7-game winning streak and a 5-game winning streak just a couple games before that. So I think they can be excused for having a stretch of less than ideal play. I mean, it's bound to happen, it will happen to every team over the course of every season. But even with that said, I still don't think it excuses a game like this, where, again, pretty much nobody except for Grubauer and maybe Tanev showed up to play. Especially after the last game where you could make a similar argument aside from a couple of players. And this one in particular, again, is especially frustrating because the Kraken got fantastic goaltending that really probably should have won them this game. Goaltending that hasn't necessarily been a trademark of this team to this point in their franchise, but now in one road trip, they wasted 2 absolutely A-plus efforts from their guys in net. And unfortunately, both of them were Grubauer's starts, 2 of the best starts that he's had as a Kraken player, the one in DC and now this one. Both turn out to be losses in regulation because the Kraken just couldn't get anything to happen offensively. Meanwhile, at the other end, Grubauer's facing grade A chance after grade A chance once again. And if you still don't want to take my word for it, let's look at that Money Puck shot quality chart that we've already seen now a couple of times this season and one other time at least on this road trip, where as you can see, up around the Kraken net, those Carolina chances, there's a lot of very big circles. Again, the bigger the circle, the more dangerous the opportunity. Lots of big circles right up in front of the net. And just so we can see the other side, let's slide over to the Kraken chances in this one. Well, you got 1 circle in front of the net. 1. And what the heck, since we're already here, we might as well look at the other Money Puck feature that a lot of people like to reference, that being their deserve to win-o-meter. Something that the Kraken were well known last season for winning the deserve to win-o-meter, but losing the game. In this case, though, they lose the game and drastically lose in the deserve to win-o-meter with just a 6.9% chance of winning a game that they play like they did in this one. And yes, while that 6.9 would be a pretty nice deserve to win chance without that little decimal in the middle, that little decimal is doing a pretty good job of pooping on the party here. Now, I suppose if you did still want to look at this game glass half full for the Kraken, outside of Grubauer, and maybe just decide that the blame shouldn't be on the players, you could, I guess, still blame the NHL. After all, it is their fault that the Kraken are still missing 2 of their top defensemen. I mean, I guess it's more Lombard's fault that they're missing Schultz, but Lombard's still playing for the Panthers perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Oleksiak was still serving the third game of his 3-game suspension for that whole situation that we went over at length in the last one of these. So then with those two missing as we get into the game, the Kraken are already not off to a great start, especially against a team like Carolina that has plenty of talent on the forward end and plays very well in their defensive end as well, especially at home so far this season. The first period definitely shows that, as the Kraken do not get off to a particularly good start. It doesn't really look like they're ready to play the game, and wouldn't you know it, that leads to an early Carolina power play. A power play that the Kraken do kill off, but by the time we've reached the halfway point of the period, the shots on goal are already, I think it was 11-2 Carolina. And again, the only reason that it's still 0-0 halfway through the first is because of Philip Grubauer in net for the Kraken. Those 11 shots were not all shots from the outside that are harmless ones easy for him to save. Many of them were right up in tight with nobody between the guy shooting the puck and Grubauer, as he came up with highlight reel save after highlight reel save. And I don't have a screenshot for every single one of them. In fact, I managed to limit it to just one, because if I did take a screenshot of all of the great Grubauer saves in this game, this whole video would basically just be a slideshow of Grubauer saves, which I'm sure some of you would like, but to be honest, I'm just not sure that makes the most compelling content. For one, as we well know by this point, they're not the highest quality screenshots, because again, they're just screenshots of the highlight packs, which are not in high definition. And besides that, considering how the game went, again, I'm just not sure it really captures the vibe of this game as a whole. Anyway, the point is, at this point, Grubauer's already made some nice saves, at which point it seems like the Kraken defensively decide, alright, let's see how nice of a save you can make. As Borgen gets the puck out of the defensive end, passing it up along the boards to Gord, who's wide open and has a chance to get it through the neutral zone. But instead, Gord decides to throw it back into the defensive end for what reason? I don't know. But he throws it back into the defensive end. Yes, he has two players there, and both of them had a perfectly good chance of handling this puck and breaking it out through the neutral zone like Gord could have done himself. But instead, it's McCann who gets just a piece of it, which makes it harder for Susi to handle. And in the end, neither one of them gets it. Both of them pass the puck, and Svechnikov picks it up going the other way, and he's got a free shot off on Grubauer. And this one, he does put into the back of the net to give the Hurricanes the 1-0 lead that, honestly, they probably should have already had by now. And yes, I know that we love all of the guys that were involved in this play that goes very poorly for the Kraken, especially Gord, who was the fan favorite last season and has a very good chance to be that this season, outside of maybe Beniers. But, I mean, when you make a mistake this egregious, well, I think even I actually know that he especially would be the first to tell you that this is one he'd like to have back. Now, over the next couple of minutes, the Kraken do try to respond to this first Carolina goal with a nice little push of their own. Really the only push that they had of this period outside of a late power play that we'll get to here in a second. But while they do get a couple of pretty good scoring opportunities, they aren't able to find the back of the net. Actually, I don't even think they're able to find the front of the net, as in spite of getting some good scoring opportunities and chances to get shots off on goal, I don't think they actually managed to get one on goal. And then it really doesn't take much longer for Carolina to push back into the Kraken end and start regaining momentum, which eventually leads to their second goal of the game. It's a pass from the face-off circle that ends up out in front for a shot from the slot that Dunn is a little bit too far off to the side to make a block here, but that is because he's trying to defend two players that this pass could potentially be going to. So instead, he's, again, a little bit too far outside. The shot's able to get off clean from the slot, and it's a very good one that's into the top corner past Grubauer to make it 2-0. Is this one that Grubauer maybe has a chance to save? Well, yes, he's made a number of better saves than he would have here had he saved this one, but again, with the saves he's already made in this game, it's hard to nitpick the one that he lets in that he maybe could have had. It is almost immediately following this now second Carolina goal to make it 2-0 here late in the first that the Kraken do get their first power play of the game, and it's one that they get a couple of chances on and a couple of shots on goal, which gets them to a total of 4 shots on goal for the entire first period. Coming into this power play late in the first, the Kraken were staring down the barrel at the end of a first period where they let in as many goals as they had shots on goal. And again, that's not a comment on their goaltender. I know I've said that a few times now, and I'll probably say it a couple more times, but I think it's worth repeating as many times as I feel like saying it. The second period does look like it's getting off to at least a little bit better of a start for the Kraken, right up until the Hurricanes get a guy on a breakaway, and that's what ends up leading to the penalty shot that we already mentioned. Now, Larson does catch up to him right before he takes the shot, and is able to mess with the breakaway shot of Nosen at least a little bit by whacking at his stick with Larson stick, which is what gets him called for slashing and leads to the penalty shot. Now, I will say, especially because Larson's stick doesn't ride up on the hands of Nosen whatsoever, in fact, he gets the lower part of the stick where he should be able to legally hit it, it does seem like a pretty soft slashing call, not necessarily a straight up bad call by any means, or one that's obviously not slashing, but it's one that you probably wouldn't see called slashing more often than not. Either way, they get a penalty shot, and he slaps it into the back of the net from right out in front of Grubauer to give them the 3-0 lead. No, I don't have any screenshots for this whole series of events. One, because, well, the penalty shot, even if it's a goal, is not particularly an interesting one. And as far as the whole Larson play that led to the penalty shot in the first place, unfortunately, the part of the replay that's in the highlight pack that I could take a screenshot of, Nosen is in front of where their sticks collide, so it wouldn't really help anything as far as what it actually looked like. And regardless, what it looks like on the scoreboard is a game that's quickly turning into the blowout that it feels like it has been. This, however, is where things start to, I wouldn't say turn around, but at least even out between the two teams. And the Kraken at least make the second period by itself interesting, as they get some chances of their own, which they weren't really getting in the first, probably the best of which is a breakaway chance by Sprong that Kochukov is able to make a pretty nice save on. He did, to be fair, have a couple of good saves in this game, though I would say as a whole his game doesn't go particularly well, as right after this save is made, eventually play is stopped and there's a face-off in the offensive zone, which the Kraken win out to Susi. Susi fires off a shot, and Donato just grazes the puck on the way by with his stick, which is enough, with the puck ending up in the back of the net, to give Donato the goal, his second in a row for the Kraken, with the one in the last few seconds meaninglessly in that game against the Lightning, and now the first one in this game, which could have had meaning, but in the end didn't. Again, though, this play showing the importance of a couple of things we've talked about so far this season for the Kraken, that they have had issues with time to time, even when they've been winning. One that's been a consistent issue throughout the entire season has been winning faceoffs, and this goal would not have happened without that win in the offensive end. The second thing is, especially lately, they've been a little bit guilty, and by a little bit I mean a lot of bit guilty, of not taking shots when they have the opportunity to. And Susi, especially with the Kraken lagging far behind in shots on goal at this point, just decides to take a shot off on goal, and it's a pretty good one. That again is pretty much a goal for Susi that just kind of glances off the tip of the stick of Donato, so technically it's a Donato goal. Either way, it's 3-1. The Kraken are at least on the board. And with the secondary assist on this goal, and also the guy that won the faceoff, though the secondary assist isn't actually the faceoff itself, there was a little bit of hitting the puck around the boards beforehand, but it's Yanni Gourde. So for Gourde then, that's 2 assists on the night, and 1 for his own team. Okay, I'm sorry, that might have been a bit of a cheap shot against Gourde, who, again, is one of our favorite players and has been great for the season all all season long for the Kraken so far. But, I mean, you have to find a way to have fun with these games in some way, even if it is at the expense of one of our favorite players. Unfortunately, following this Kraken goal, they just aren't really able to build much momentum, as things kind of stall out over the next few minutes, and the Kraken do eventually get another late power play here in the second, in which, although the Kraken do get a couple of chances towards the beginning of it, late in the power play, it very nearly goes poorly for them the other direction, as the Canes get a 2-on-1 opportunity, or kind of a broken 2-on-1. Anyway, they get a partial 2-on-1 opportunity that nearly finds the back of the net, as the 1 and almost 2 Kraken defenders both commit to the same guy, which leads another open in the middle of the ice. The pass gets over. It's a very nice saucer pass that gets over the Kraken defenseman, but Grubauer comes up with another big save in net, shooting down the shot on goal as it's chipped in off the pass. Although still, I think Grubauer's best save of this game, or certainly the one that was easiest to get a clean look at, probably came way back right after that penalty shot went in to make it 3-0 for Carolina. They nearly made it 4-0 as they pressed right back into the offensive end there, and then a defensive breakdown by the Kraken allows 2 Carolina Hurricanes, 1 behind the net and 1 out in front off to the side, to create a grade A scoring chance, a grade A plus scoring chance for that matter, as 3 of the Kraken players are all surrounding another guy on the other side of the net that has a much harder chance to get a pass, and then the other 2 are back behind the play watching along the boards, I guess. Either way, it leads to a clean pass and a clean chance off on net that Grubauer is able to get back to just in time to make a very nice save. Regardless, though, of which spectacular Grubauer save from this game was your favorite, by the end of 2, the score is still 3-1 in Carolina's favor. Still, considering how this game has gone, it seems like it could be a lot worse. And by the time we reach the middle of the third, that feeling has been only further cemented, as this third period from the start of it to again about the midway point is pretty much been entirely Carolina Hurricanes. Somehow though, and I mean we know how, it's Grubauer, they still haven't scored again. And then even more bewilderingly, it's the Kraken who end up scoring next on a random chance back the other way against the grain. It's Sprong who gets a puck from Tanev as they enter the offensive zone, and as he continues into the offensive end up along the boards, eventually he just fires off a shot from the far side of the faceoff dot. I think probably more looking for a rebound than anything else, but it's Sprong and he has a very nice shot, even as a wrist shot, even outside of the rocket of a one-timer he has, and that quick wrist shot manages to squeak through Kochetkov and into the back of the net to bring the Kraken to within one. It's now 3-2, and somehow, someway, the Kraken are actually in this game. But while this Sprong goal does stop Carolina's momentum that had been building to this point in the third, the Kraken are really never able to get much of anything going of their own. They do get one press, kind of 5 minutes left in the game, but that doesn't score, and then eventually Carolina ends up with a late power play as Susi gets called for interference. That pretty much kills off the rest of the time, as the Kraken do end up losing this one 3-2. So again, a second ugly loss in a row for the Kraken on the road, as they will come back home on Sunday to face the Winnipeg Jets, who are also playing very well to this point in the season, but hopefully getting back home and getting both, well, hopefully Schultz, but certainly Alexiak back in the lineup will help things out a bit. And who knows, with how things have gone these last couple of games, especially in the offensive end, though defensive end as well, we might even get to see Eli Tolvanen for the first time in a Kraken uniform, which would be kind of fun because we could also very well end up seeing Kuhlman, who was let go to bring Tolvanen in. Although Kuhlman will be playing for the Jets. It doesn't really matter who's put on the ice for that game though. The Kraken just need to find a way to play like the team that had that 5-7 game winning streak, and honestly that we saw up until this point in the season, or maybe more 6 games ago. As for Kraken stars in this game, the first star, and honestly he could be all 3 stars for the Kraken, is Philip Grubauer. Again, one more time for the millionth time in this video, Grubauer was pretty much the main attraction for the Kraken in this game, and like we saw with Bobrovsky in Florida, was pretty much left out to dry by the entire rest of the team. Maybe the one exception to that would be the guy that I wouldn't say reluctantly, but I'm not necessarily convinced that anyone was super deserving of a second star. That having been said, I'll give it to Tanev. He gets the second star in this game, and there is no third star, so it's Grubauer and Tanev in this one, and yeah, hopefully after 2 games in a row where I think only 2 guys were worthy of stars, we can get back to handing out 3 stars in that next game against Winnipeg. I mean, Adam Larson has a pretty cool bobblehead, so he's already got a head start there. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments section down below about this game and this road trip as a whole, I guess. How excited we are to actually have at least one, if not hopefully both of our defensemen back that we missed for most of the road trip. And until that game against the Jets, as always, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel. Stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!